about Veterans Day, which is literally one of my favorite days in the entire world. I want to let you know that it is the veteran, not the reporter, that gives us freedom of speech. It is the veteran, not the clergyman, that gives us freedom of religion. It is the veteran, not the politician, that gives us freedom to assemble, because it is the veteran that protects that which matters most, and that is freedom itself. We are one of the fewest countries in the entire world that recognizes their veterans annually on a day like this, and that's what makes our country the greatest country in the entire world. But I hope y'all know that I am from Houston, Texas, so there's always one exception. For it is the Astros that gives us 2 World Series in the last 6 years. I'm sorry. No, what are you running from me? I'm sorry. My chief is here today, actually over from my Astros, and he said, take that off, unappropriate. But honestly, thank you all so much for having me. It's an honor to be here on a day like this that means the world to me, my family, and to my country. And I want to tell you a story as to why we live in the greatest country in the world. I come from a military family. My dad was a retired lieutenant colonel in the Army. He served for 23 years. My sister went to West Point in my family first. She served 23 years active duty as a military intelligence officer and then went on to get her master's degree in applied mathematics. And there's a saying at West Point, and it's the history we teach was made by those we taught. Consequently, many of my instructors were West Point graduates and ROTC active duty members that went on to get their master's degrees and their PhDs from schools around the country and came back to West Point as active duty officers to teach all the cadets. Consequently, my sister was an instructor at West Point, while both my brother and I were both cadets. It was terrible. I mean, imagine walking around campus because she's a major. I had to salute my sister every single day. Like every day she would see me like a mile away and track me down. It was like a salute her. It was really I went to West Point in my family second. Served 8 years active duty as an Apache helicopter driver, as we call it, 55 combat air missions in Baghdad. It's the coolest thing I've ever done in my life was flying Apaches in combat. It's been downhill ever since. And then I had one more combat deployment at Cornell University. Earning 3 master's degrees in 4 years, business, public administration, and industrial and labor relations. And I call it combat because it's really cold and it's really liberal. You can imagine a guy like me walking into a room with cowboy boots on, usually had a hat on, drinking coffee with some of these latte liberals. And they're like, so wait a minute, you're like from Houston and you're pro energy and oil and gas, and you're a combat veteran and you're full of Apaches, and you're like black and stuff? They're like, who sent you? Who sent you? I said, yes, but people can't be conservative, actually. My brother, who was also a West Point graduate, you know, there's always one person in your family that just makes poor decisions, you know? And it was my youngest brother. We're 10 months and 8 days apart. We're really close. We're Irish twins. Those of you know what that is. And literally, this guy looks at his family that goes and goes to serve in the Army, and he looks at us and says, "Nah, dog, I want to go serve in the Navy." Go Army, get Navy. Good answer. My brother served honorably for 5 years in the United States Navy. he went on to get his master's degree from Harvard Business School. And there's 66 years with the military service just in my immediate family. My brother and I, we don't take very many days off because we believe in celebrating accomplishments. But there's one day that we have earned, and that is this day. And my brother, who's a workaholic, is actually playing golf all day. He told his employer, look, I don't work on Veterans Day, man, that's it. And I think it's so important to understand why we don't work on Veterans Day. I'm working now, this is very different. There are so many people that are no longer with us because they paid the ultimate sacrifice. They have their own day. It's called Memorial Day. Very different from Veterans Day. And please understand that when you see a veteran today, they may have been a moment away from us talking about them on Memorial Day. I lost 14 of my West Point classmates in the global war on terror. One of them was a man by the name of David Frazier, who was killed on his last mission on November 26, 2006. He was a good buddy of mine, born and raised in Houston together, went to church together, and I served with him in Iraq at the same time. Being elected to Congress is such an honor, but it is not the greatest honor of my life. The greatest honor of my life was giving his eulogy at the age of 25 years old. And you see, when brave young men and women like David Frazier give their lives in defense of this nation, it is incumbent upon everyone in this room to continue to find ways to serve. Because those brave men and women are no longer here to serve for themselves. When I look at a room of young conservatives like this, I'm filled with pride, dignity, and honor because I know you understand what it means to live in America and be a part of the land of the free because of the brave and the home of the brave. It means so much to me to see young faces that are willing to get in this fight regardless of what the left is painting us to be, all the bad names and all the bad things they're calling us, and yet you still stand for what you believe for. Don't ever stop, because people died for your right to be able to do it. And on your worst day, and the meanest thing someone can say about you on Twitter or on the gram, always know that you are free to express yourself however you please. Because the people that allowed you to do it, generation to generation to generation, brave men and women raised their hands and they said, we will defend this country against all enemies, both foreign and domestic, for you. Stand up for your own rights. My great-great-grandfather was a man by the name of Silas Crawford. He was a slave. He was born on Rosedown Plantation, about 33 miles north of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Rosedown Plantation still exists today. The kitchen, where my great-great-grandmother worked, still exists today. I've seen it with my own eyes. 3 of their great-great-grandchildren attended West Point. 3 of their great-great-grandchildren had the honor of serving our country. And 3 of their, one of them be a congressman, but the other was a very great businessman, and my sister retired. And 3 of them all found a way to be somebody in this country. There is no excuse. For if a direct descendant of a slave can become a United States congressman in a district that President Trump would have won by 20 points and we won by 30 is a district that's 72% white. And I ran against 9 other white guys in a Republican primary and beat them by 30 points. This is a meritocracy. We shouldn't be in the business of talking about how hard somebody else had it. I can assure you, we, being a part of the human condition, we all have our struggles. We all have our problems. We all have our crosses to bear. But I'm going to tell you that in this country, don't spend your time being a victim. Spend your time figuring out how to be somebody. And as somebody that was stationed in Saudi Arabia for 2 years as the diplomatic liaison officer in 2012 and 13, I'm going to tell you, when I left there, women didn't have the right to drive a motor vehicle. In 2019, I read an article in the Wall Street Journal where Saudi Arabia was bragging about how women can now drive, as if they were proud of this. And I understand that we are not perfect in this country. But we always strive for Christ-like perfection. That's our Judeo-Christian background. It's who we are. It's what our ethos is actually all about. But we're never going to get there because we're humans. We have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. But that's okay. Because we always strive to get better from generation to generation to generation. It's why I'm standing here today. Don't ever forget that. That's our history. That's our lineage. I know right now the left is actively trying to tear this down. I see it every day. Our country is systemically racist. CRT. Everybody is evil. Let's change the names on all the buildings and all the statues. Just completely stupid. Because if we were naming everything after something perfect in every street and every building and every name would be called Jesus Christ. That was really confusing. I got a lot of West Point stories, but one of my favorite ones is the idea at West Point is that all the buildings and all the barracks and the statues are named after prominent West Point graduates that went on to do great things. There's Eisenhower Barracks, there's MacArthur Barracks, there's Grant Barracks, there's Patton's statue that's actually prominently displayed in front of the library. Why? Because General Patton graduated last in his class. And apparently he never set foot in the library, so his back is facing it. As he looks over the plane. And of course there is one Robert E. Lee Barracks. And Wesley Hunt spent a semester living in a Robert E. Lee Barracks. And every time I walked under that threshold, I was like, wow. What a country. Here I am, not just me, but my brother and my sister, matriculating to the premier leadership institution of the world at West Point. And I'm living in the barracks named after a Confederate general that fought against the rights of people that looked like me. How cool is that? And if it were named anything differently, then I wouldn't have that perspective. Because that's all the names on buildings and statues are. Not necessarily about our past, it's about the bright future that we have created. And that's what America actually is all about. One very prominent feature at West Point is called Trophy Point. Trophy Point overlooks the Hudson River as it makes the meandering western bend as it heads south down to New York City. It's majestic. one of the most beautiful places on earth. At one point, Trophy Point was the largest single piece of granite for a monument in the entire world. And surrounding Trophy Point are Civil War era cannons that are buried into the ground, muzzle first. Why? There was a time in this country where, depending on where you were from, the North or the South, you would attend West Point, serve with your fellow brothers at the time, eat and train and go to class with. And then you would enter a country at war, ripping itself apart. And if you were from the North, you were fighting with your West Point classmates from the South. You were literally killing your own classmates. Trophy Point was created, and the reason why those cannons are buried into the ground, muzzle first, is to commemorate the notion and the idea that we, as Americans, will never aim our cannons against our fellow countrymen again. Think about it. It's actually a fascinating piece of American history because it talks about just how far we've come to get to this point right now. And if we are a country that can get through a civil war, yet here we are. We are a country where the world called on us to end fascism, not once, but twice. And we became back-to-back World War champions. And here we are. We are a country that endured the Civil Rights Movement. You see, my dad was born in 1949. He's alive and well. He's 73 years old. He was born in New Orleans, Louisiana. My dad grew up in the segregated South. My father, who's alive and well, drank from colored-only water fountains and sat on the backs of buses. My father, and here I am. This is a country that in 2001, two planes slammed into the most prominent buildings in our entire country, killing thousands of Americans instantly on 9/11. And the next week, you could not find an American flag online because they were all sold out. And if you're telling me that we as a country can endure all of that, we can endure Joe Biden. I get that a couple of days ago it did not go as well as we would have liked. It went pretty good for me, but you know what I mean, right? It wasn't the best day. But a win is a win. One of my favorite movies is Training Day. And in this movie, Denzel Washington turns to the guy who's training and says, do you want to go home or do you want to go to jail? Do you want the house or do you not want the house? We got the house. That's a big win for us. So that we can stop what's happening in our country in its tracks. And yes, we still have more work to do, but that's okay. Because you're here right now, because you're willing to do the work to preserve our nation. Sir, you are absolutely spot on. I just turned 40 last year. The last time we were in this state was literally 40 years ago. History has this thing. It repeats itself ad infinitum. And I got a feeling that even though we didn't get the red wave that we anticipated, after 2 more years, what we've seen for the last 2 years, it's really setting us up for a very good 2024. Roosevelt famously said, his man in the is not the critic that counts, nor how the man points out how the strong man stumbles, nor how the doer of deeds that have done them better, but the credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who actually strives to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of our achievement, and who at the worst, even if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls that neither know victory or defeat. The fact that you're in this room right now means that you want to join us in the arena. The fact that you're here right now means that you believe in a cause to better our country and better not just my future, not your future, but your children's children's future. It's difficult. It's tough. It's hard. But understand that that's the American warrior ethos that manifests itself every single generation. And when it looks so dark, when it looks so dim and dismal, I have the honor of walking in rooms just like this and saying to myself, thank God I'm an American. Thank you all so much for allowing me to address you this evening. Anytime somebody asks me, is it hard running for Congress? Is it going to be hard being a congressman? Well, first of all, I'm not getting shot at, so there's that. But secondly, and most importantly, how could I possibly tire of serving a country that has Americans like you in it? No matter what anybody says about me on Twitter or the gram on FB, I always am invigorated and I am inspired by people who love not my country, our country. Thank you for having me. God bless you.